Fred Brown's outside shot was his greatest strength, as he had range well beyond 20 feet. He could pull up in transition, take his man off the dribble, and move off the ball to get open. He was the true definition of a microwave scorer, getting hot in a hurry, while also staying calm in pressure situations. But he was much more than a jump shooter, using a crafty mix of floaters and up and unders when he slashed to the rim. Fred could also play the point if need be, while locking up on defense. After a breakout senior year at Iowa, he was picked 6th overall by the Sonics in 1971. He was on a steady trajectory over his first 5 seasons, culminating in an All-Star appearance in 1976. As the decade wore on, and Seattle acquired Dennis Johnson and Gus Williams, Fred would become one of the better 6 men in the league, helping the Sonics win the title in 1979. He would spend his entire career in Seattle, becoming the longest tenured player in franchise history. He's widely considered the NBA's best shooter during the 70s, so it's only right that we focus on the career of Downtown Freddie Brown. Welcome to PZ Hoops, and let's get down to it. Fred was born on August 7, 1948 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His athletic gifts were obvious as a teenager, as during his time at Lincoln High School, he made the All-State team twice, winning 2 state titles, all while lettering in track, football, and baseball as well. He was shooting from long range even in high school, as opponents would call him Downtown, and the name stuck. After high school, he played 2 seasons at Southeastern Community College in Iowa, averaging 24 points in that span. He wouldn't go that far after this. Committing to the University of Iowa as a junior, he joined John Johnson on the Hawkeyes team with a lot of potential, but they had a bad start to the season, winning 3 of their first 7. They then went on an unprecedented 15-game winning streak with the help of the #1 offense in the nation, scoring over 100 points 9 times during the streak. Their undefeated Big Ten record secured them a trip to the Big Dance, as Fred averaged 18 points and 4 rebounds. The Hawkeyes faced a surprising Jacksonville team for their first game, as Fred led them with 27 points and 4 rebounds, but Iowa would lose on a buzzer beater by Pembroke Burroughs. They beat Notre Dame in the 3rd place game, as Fred dropped 16 points and 6 rebounds. John left for the NBA in 1970, so it was Fred's team now. Aside from future pro Kevin Cunnert, this team was a stark contrast from last year's. They were either at or below 500 the entire season, as they finished 9-15 on the year. Despite the lack of team success, it was a great individual season for Fred, as he made the All Big Ten first team and ranked 10th in the nation in scoring, averaging 28 points and 4.5 rebounds. The 1971 draft class was a little thin in terms of guard talent after Austin Carr, and with his impressive senior season, Fred was chosen 6th overall by the Sonics. Spencer Haywood was the building block of this young expansion team, and with player coach Lenny Wilkins and Dick Snyder in the starting lineup, Fred was buried deep on the bench, only appearing in 33 games. His best performance was a 12-point, 3-rebound, and 3-assist effort against the Pistons. He was a player that needed time to get into a rhythm, and his inconsistent minutes ruined his efficiency. This wasn't alarming though, as Fred was still learning the game. In his first full season in Seattle, Spencer made the All-NBA first team, while Lenny was still effective at 34. This was a great season for the team, finishing 47-35, but being in a division with the 51-win Warriors and the 69-win Lakers meant no playoffs for Seattle. For his rookie season, Fred averaged 4 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. 1972 was a year of change for the Sonics, as Lenny Wilkins was traded to the Cavs, so Tom Nissalke was hired as the new head coach. They also signed the troubled ABA star John Brisker, hoping that he would form a nice inside-out duo with Spencer. But old habits die hard, as during training camp, he punched rookie Joby Wright in the jaw, knocking out several of his teeth. On a more positive note, Fred was now the starter and he showed a lot of potential, dropping 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists in the 3rd game of the year. He put up a season-high 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 15 assists against the Warriors, followed by 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists the next game. Fred was producing in all areas, dropping 18 games with at least 20 points, 3 double-doubles, and 10 games with double-digit assists. Spencer had the best season of his career, while Fred was a top 10 passer, but Seattle had one of the weakest benches in the league. They were also inefficient, as Jim Fox was the only player on the team to shoot over 50%, so they won only 26 games this year. Fred averaged 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. Seattle shook things up again in 1973, hiring Bill Russell as their new coach and executive. It was clear that John Brisker wasn't working out, so Kenny McIntosh filled in as a starting small forward. Fred started year 3 out with a bang, dropping 31 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 4 steals in the season opener. He put up 31 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals on Halloween against Detroit, at 37 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 assists on 15 of 21 shooting the next game. During the last 18 games of the season, he was really feeling it, even dropping a career-high 58 points on March 23rd against the Warriors. Spencer put up his usual numbers, but Seattle seemed destined for mediocrity, as a 36-46 record would extend their playoff drop. Fred averaged 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.5 steals. The Sonics continued to build through the draft in 1974, selecting Tom Burleson and Leonard Gray. They also addressed their point guard issues by signing Archie Clark. Fred continued to get more shots in the offense as he established himself as one of the league's best scorers, averaging 23 points on 49% shooting in the first 25 games. On November 23rd against Portland, he dropped 40 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 7 steals, along with 40 points, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists 6 days later. His versatility was on full display, with 2 double-digit assist games and 9 games with at least 5 steals. He was 15th in scoring and 5th in steals. However, Spencer was on the decline at only 25 years old. Leonard and Tom had solid rookie campaigns, while Slick Watts provided nice minutes off the bench, as the Sonics finished 43-39, making the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. Fred actually got some MVP votes this year, averaging 21 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.5 steals. The Sonics faced the Pistons in the first round, and Fred proved that he could perform in the postseason, dropping 23 points on 11 of 15 shooting in Game 1, and 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in Game 2, as the Sonics won Game 3 to advance and face the Warriors. Fred had 26 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 steals in Game 2, and 37 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in Game 4, but Seattle was eliminated in 6. Seattle had finally seen some success, but they chose to shake up the rotation, trading Archie and Spencer in the offseason. Slick Watts had impressed enough to become the starting point guard, while Fred would have the biggest green light of his career. He dropped 29 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in the season opener, followed by a season-high 41 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists on November 9th against the Jazz. Fred was a pretty consistent scorer all year, averaging 22 in December, 24 in January, and 25 in February. He received the biggest honor of his career this season, earning a spot as a reserve in the All-Star game. He ranked 5th in scoring, 10th in steals, and 5th in free throw percentage. Slick had a career season as well, leading the league in assists and steals, making the second team all-defense. However, their team defense was pretty shaky, giving up the third most points. Seattle finished with the same 43-39 record, earning another playoff berth. Fred averaged 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals, as the Suns met them in the semifinals. This was by far the best playoff series of his career, as he put up 34 in Game 1, 45 in Game 2, and 33 in Game 4. But Seattle still couldn't get it done, losing Game 6 on the road to get sent home. It was looking like Tom Burleson wasn't the answer at center, so the Sonics brought in Mike Green. He also got a steal in the second round with Dennis Johnson. Fred was still the primary scorer, but his shot attempts went way down this season. He still went off for 29 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists on the 4th game of the year. He dropped 29 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, and a career-high 10 steals against Philly. He was still scoring his points, but it just wasn't at the same level as last year. He was still locked in on defense though, grabbing at least 3 steals in 10 games. Slick had another similar season, but the Sonics seemed to be stuck in no man's land. Not good enough to compete for a title, but also not bad enough for a top draft pick, as their 40-42 record meant no playoffs. Fred averaged 17 points, 3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 2 steals. The 1976 offseason was where things really picked up for Seattle. Bill resigned as the head coach, while his cousin Bob Hopkins took his place. They also made a big trade, sending Tom Burleson, Bob Wilkerson, and a first-rounder to Denver for Paul Silas, Marvin Webster, and Willie Wise. They hit big in the draft, taking a rather unknown big man from Illinois Wesleyan in Jack Sikma. Finally, they signed a free agent Gus Williams and traded for John Johnson. Even with all this talent they got, Fred was still the starter in the beginning, and he was still proving his worth as a solid two-way player. But the Sonics had a terrible start to the year, winning 5 of their first 22 games. Bob was fired and replaced by a recently retired Lenny Wilkins, who opted to start Dennis for his size and defense. Fred was still solid in his new role, averaging 17 points on 49% shooting in November. With the decreased pressure, he was extremely efficient, helping the Sonics do a complete 180, winning 42 of their next 60 after the Wilkins hire, earning another playoff berth with a 47-35 record. Fred averaged 17 points, 2.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1.5 steals. They faced the Lakers in the first round, and he was consistent in a 3-game series win. The defending champion Trailblazers were next, as he continued his production in a 6-game series win. The Nuggets stood in the way of a finals appearance, and Freddie dropped 26, 6, and 6 in Game 2, and 26 points with 4 steals and 3 offensive rebounds in the closeout Game 6. The Sonics made the finals, facing a scrappy Bullets team, but Fred wasn't afraid of the big moment, dropping 30 points in his finals debut. He had 26 in Game 5 and 21 in Game 7, but the cold shooting of Dennis and Gus really cost them, as they watched the Bullets celebrate a title on their home floor. Fred came into 1978 as the full-time 6-man, as Seattle brought in Lonnie Shelton from the Knicks to replace a 35-year-old Paul Silas in the starting lineup. Fred had 15 20-point games as a reserve, with a season high coming on December 13th against the Lakers, with 28 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Jack and Dennis both broke out, becoming all-stars while Gus led the team in scoring. Seattle's style of play emphasized on the ball movement, as 5 players averaged more than 3 assists. They were also the best defensive team in the league, allowing the fewest points and the lowest shooting percentage. leading them to a then franchise record 52 wins. Fred averaged 14 points, 2 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1.5 steals. They faced the Lakers yet again in the semifinals, but Fred didn't get a lot of minutes in this series. The Sonics won in 5, facing the Suns in the conference finals. He had 3 games in double figures as the Sonics won in 7, making it back to the finals, facing the Bullets again. But this year was different, with Seattle dropping game 1, but winning the next 4, capturing the title in Washington. The NBA finally added the three-point line in 1979, as Fred's long-range shooting was a lot more valuable now. His scoring was down, but he made multiple threes in 5 games, draining 3 of them in the December 9th matchup against the Bulls. He had 5 20-point games and 3 games with at least 3 steals. He was 9th in the league with 39 threes, but he made over 44% of his attempts, which led the league. Seattle's offense was starting to catch up to their defense, as Dennis and Gus were both all-NBA performers. They won 56 games this year, as Fred averaged 12 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. He was consistent through the first 2 rounds, as Seattle got past Portland and Milwaukee. They faced the Lakers in the conference finals, a team they had beaten the past couple of years without too much trouble. But this time, they had a certain 6'10" point guard that made them pretty hard to beat, and Seattle wouldn't get a chance to defend their title, losing in 5 games. As quickly as they rose to the top, the Sonics fell really hard in 1980, as Dennis was traded for often injured Paul Westphal. Lonnie Shelton missed most of the season with injury, but the biggest issue was the contract situation of Gus Williams. After an All-NBA campaign, the Sonics offered him a disrespectfully low extension. Since the two sides couldn't come to an agreement, Gus chose to sit out the entire season, as now their most important offensive player was gone. Fred received an unexpected role increase due to this, and he took advantage, averaging 19 points on 50% shooting in November, including a season-high 28 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists against Denver. He had 18 more 20-point games this year, finishing 9th in three-pointers again. But Seattle was struggling without Gus, so they finished at 34-48, their worst record since 1972. Fred averaged 16 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. The Sonics did the smart thing and gave Gus a new contract in 1981, but their roster looked a lot different, with Wally Walker and Billy Hanslick getting major minutes. A 33-year-old Fred was on a decline, but he was still valuable in limited minutes. He dropped 22 points in 26 minutes against Denver and 24 points in 25 minutes against Houston, shooting 11 of 16 from the floor. Jack and Gus were elite as usual, but Lonnie came back from injury and had a career season, becoming an all-star and a member of the second-team all-defense. But outside of these 3, Seattle's offense wasn't that good, as Fred was the only other double-figure scorer on the team. But the defense was always their best strength, so they bounced back with a 52-win season. Fred averaged 11 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists, as Seattle faced the Rockets in the first round. He dropped 21 in Game 1 of a 3-game series win, as they met the Spurs in the second round. Fred dropped 25 on 10 of 16 shooting in Game 2, but this would be Seattle's only win of the series, as they lost in a gentleman's sweep. The Sonics made an interesting trade in 1982, acquiring David Thompson, a former superstar that had fallen by the wayside due to his addiction issues. Danny Vrains was the new starting small forward, but it was clear that Seattle wasn't one of the top teams in the league anymore. Fred was getting buried deeper in the rotation, but he was still a consistent scorer off the bench, dropping a season-high 25 points on 12 of 17 shooting against the Lakers. David had a down year by his standards, but he was still voted as an all-star starter, probably due to his popularity. The 2 main guys essentially carried this team to a 48-34 record, as Fred averaged 10 points, 1 rebound, and 3 assists. They faced Portland in the first round, but they were easily swept, as Fred shot 22% for the series. The Sonics brought in Tom Chambers and Al Wood in 1983. David blew out his knee in a bar fight and he was done after 19 games. Fred was now 35, and his career was pretty much over at this point, but he did make the most of the minutes he played. He dropped 27 points and 5 assists on 12 of 18 shooting against the Cavs, while also having a 3-game stretch in December averaging 15 points and 11 assists. He was only playing about 16 minutes a night, but he had 5 20-point games and 4 games with double-digit assists. Seattle finished 42-40 on the season, still a playoff team, but a long shot to compete for a title. Fred averaged 9 points, 1 rebound, and 3 assists, as Seattle faced the Mavericks in the first round. This was a back-and-forth series, as both teams split their home and road games up to this point, with the series tied heading into a deciding Game 5. Fred got the start and played very well, dropping 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists, but the Mavs would win in overtime, sending the Sonics home. Fred retired after this season, as he was the franchise leader in points, field goals, free throws, and games played. He would have his hands in several business ventures while working with youth basketball programs, taking time to mentor the young athletes. He was also very vocal about financial literacy among athletes, and he still campaigns for the NBA to bring basketball back to Seattle. Fred Brown was a player that was simply ahead of his time, as with the play style of teams shifting towards more long-range shots as the years went on, Fred would have definitely made more than one All-Star game. He was a great player in the beginning of his career, displaying his other skills as well, but once more versatile guards joined the team, Fred became the perfect role player that the Sonics needed to win a title, providing spacing, passing, and perimeter defense. The Sonics showed their gratitude by retiring his jersey number and naming him to their 40th anniversary team. He might not have the widespread recognition, but Fred was one of the best shooters in NBA history, as his impact on the game was felt not long after he retired. Thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all. I can't even count how many requests I got for Freddie Brown, man. He would have been so great if he would have came maybe a decade later, maybe 15 years later, heading into the 90s. In his era, taking the shot from 22, 23 feet was a bad shot because everything was worth 2. It's like, why take a 20-footer when you can dump it to the center, or you can catch a guy curling off a screen for a 15-foot mid-range? I like how he had a lot of other skills though. Like he could play the point guard, he could run the offense, he could play good perimeter defense. He could do a lot of things, man. He was more than just a jump shooter. You know, he definitely found a way to really fit into that Seattle team. And you just win by ball movement and defense, just teamwork, like everyone's doing their thing. Shout out to Fred Brown, one of the best shooters ever, if we're being honest. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys for the support. Leave a like if you enjoy, hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Turn my post notifications on if you haven't already. Thank you. Please be safe. I'm out. Peace.